As we've previously learned, technical sketching is often comprised of both two-dimensional and three-dimensional sketches. We've spent some time already learning about isometric sketches, which is an example of three-dimensional sketching. And now with this video, we'll introduce you to a type of two-dimensional sketch called multiview drawings. Multiview drawings are a collection of flat drawings or two-dimensional drawings, and they work together to give a complete and accurate description of our object. Each drawing shows only one side or one face of your object, and each drawing shows two of the three primary dimensions of our object, those primary dimensions being height, width, and depth. So here's an example of a three-dimensional object that is kind of an L-shaped bracket with a hole cut in it. And you could think of a person looking at this object. You can see how width, depth, and height are marked on this object. And so if we were looking at the front face of this object, it would look two-dimensional, just like what you see here, showing just the width and the height of our object. There happen to be 6 principal views of any object that you could use. You could think of this like the 6 faces of a cube. And so they're all in relation to the front face. And so you can see that front is kind of in the middle here. You could have the top or the bottom. You could have the right side, the left side, or the back side known as the rear. When you're drawing a multi-view drawing, you typically only need 3 views. Every once in a while, when we have a case of extreme symmetry, you would actually only need 2 views. But for almost everything that we'll do in our class, we'll use 3 views, and those most common 3 views are the front, the right, and the top. Also, when we're doing multi-view drawings, we don't label our views. So we don't write the words front, top, and right. Instead, what we end up doing is arranging them on our piece of paper in accordance to this pattern that you see here. So you typically start by drawing the front view, and then your top view is always directly lined up over the front, and your right-hand side is directly lined up to the right of the front view. If you were to choose a different view, let's say front, right, and bottom, you'll notice that the bottom is always below the front. The left side is always to the left of the front, and on the other side of that left side is always the rear. So here's an example. We're thinking of our object as a 3-dimensional piece that we're able to pick up off the table and rotate around. So as you can see, there's our object. You can kind of see from that grayscale that it's a 3-dimensional object. And we start out by looking at its front. And when we are looking at its front, as in this view right here, you can see that in the bottom, those kind of cutouts that you can see well in this diagram here just look like boxes. You see that on this view up here. And then if I take that object and I rotate it so I'm looking at the right-hand side, I just see kind of this L shape. You'll notice these extra dashed lines in this diagram. Those are called hidden and center lines, and we'll learn about those in a future video. For now, you don't need to worry about any of those. Just draw those solid lines that you would see. And then if I take that same object back to where I was at the front view, I rotate it so that I'm looking at the top, like you can see up here. It kind of looks almost like an upside down U, and we see just kind of a solid line from this top portion right here, and then this upside down U shape right there. We see that in this top view. Notice how none of these views are labeled with the words top, front, and right. We can just tell because the right is to the right of the front view and the top is above the front view. To get a little more specific, we want to make sure that those views are always lined up. So I should be able to draw a line across, and the height of these two should be the exact same. It should be perfectly lined up. Same thing for going from the front view to the top view. I should be able to draw a line from the left edge to the left edge and from the right edge to this right edge here. So making sure that we have that alignment, and also you always want to keep some space between your views, like we see a nice space here and some nice space here. We will later on learn about adding dimensions into our multi-view drawings, and that space will be crucial so that we have space to add dimensions into our views. For now, as long as you leave some space, there's no rule or regulation as to how much to leave.